We are living through an AI revolution. There's no doubt about it. But underneath all the incredible tech, there's a question that philosophers have been wrestling with for centuries. Can a machine truly think? Today, we're going to peel back the layers and explore the deep philosophical debate behind that very question. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the incredible hype and the warnings surrounding AI right now. Then, we're going to jump in a time machine and find the philosophical spark that lit this whole fire. We'll unpack a famous thought experiment that really throws a wrench in the whole thinking machine idea, explore a completely different spiritual take on intelligence, and then see how this all comes down to two competing worldviews. And finally, we'll figure out why this entire debate is actually about us, not the machines. All right, let's jump right in. You can't go a day without hearing these huge promises and sometimes pretty terrifying warnings about AI from the biggest names in tech and science. Get this. All the way back in 1999, the futurist Ray Kurzweil made this wild prediction. He was convinced that the line between human consciousness and machine processing would one day just dissolve. And really, this idea has been the driving force behind the quest for what we now call artificial general intelligence, or AGI. But, this dream has a flip side, a pretty serious one. Brilliant minds like Stephen Hawking raised the alarm, warning about a future where our own creations could evolve so fast that humanity, with our slow biological pace, just couldn't keep up. And look, this isn't just some far-off sci-fi plot anymore. More recently, former Google CEO Eric Schmidt put a timeline on it, like 3 to 5 years. He describes AGI as a machine that's as smart as the smartest person you know. And right after that, ASI, or artificial superintelligence, which would be smarter than all of us combined. Wow. And this is where we pivot from a tech problem to a much, much deeper philosophical one. It's not just about building better chips or writing better code. The real fundamental question is, can you even get something like consciousness to just pop out of a bunch of physical parts? What even is intelligence anyway? To really get to the bottom of this, we need to rewind the clock. Way back. See, the idea of a thinking machine didn't just appear with computers. It actually started centuries ago with a totally radical new way of looking at the human mind itself. So this whole thing really gets going in the 17th century. First, you have Descartes, who said our minds are separate from our bodies, which are basically just machines. But then Thomas Hobbes took it a giant step further. He said, nope, everything is machine, including our own intellect. And that idea right there paved the entire road for modern AI pioneers, who tend to see the brain as a kind of biological computer and intelligence as nothing more than information processing. Just listen to this quote from Hobbes. It perfectly captures that purely mechanical view. He's saying there's no magic, no ghost in the machine. For him, life, our bodies, even our thoughts, it could all be broken down into physical parts, just like the gears and springs in a watch. Okay. But not everyone was on board with this whole mind as a machine thing. A really powerful challenge came not from religion, but from within philosophy itself, using a simple but brilliant thought experiment. Let's walk through this. It's called the Chinese room argument from the philosopher John Searle. Picture this. A person who only speaks English is locked in a room. Through a slot, they're given slips of paper with Chinese characters. Now, they have a giant rule book that tells them exactly which Chinese characters to send back out in response. So to anyone on the outside, it looks like this room is having a fluent conversation in Chinese. But here's the million-dollar question from Searle. Does the person inside the room actually understand a single word of Chinese? And the answer, he argues, is obviously no. They're just shuffling symbols according to a set of rules, which is exactly and only what a computer program does.
And this is the knockout punch. Searle's point is that there's a huge difference between simulating a mind and having one. A computer can follow the rules of language, the syntax, perfectly, but it has absolutely no access to the meaning, the semantics. It's like knowing all the grammar rules for a language but having no clue what the words actually mean. It can mimic understanding, but it never, ever truly understands.
So if real intelligence isn't just about processing symbols, then what is it? Let's switch gears completely and explore a totally different worldview, one that sees the intellect as something not physical at all. In the Islamic intellectual tradition, the intellect, or aql, isn't the brain, not at all. It's seen as a spiritual substance, something non-physical that is the very core of what makes us human. And its job isn't just to crunch data. Its real purpose is to recognize truth. In this way of thinking, the brain is just the tool. The intellect is the one using it. Great thinkers like the philosopher Al-Ghazali explained it this way. What we call the intellect, the heart, the soul, and the spirit, they aren't four different things. They're just different names for the same single, non-material reality inside us, each name just describing a different job it does. And this quote from the scholar Alatas just sums it up so beautifully. Our physical body is just the form, the way these deeper spiritual realities show up in the world. So in this view, we're not just our brains. We are an intellect, a spirit that is expressed through a body. So what we're left with are two completely opposite ideas about what it means to be human. And the whole debate we're having about AI, well, it's really just a battleground for these two clashing worldviews. Let's put them side by side. On one hand, the mechanical view says the intellect is the brain, that consciousness is just something that happens when things get complicated enough, and that intelligence is just computation. And if that's true, well, then of course we can be redesigned or surpassed. But on the other hand, the spiritual view says the intellect uses the brain, that consciousness is a fundamental reality, that intelligence is about understanding truth, and that means humans have a unique essence that you just can't copy. And the end result of that purely mechanical view is what's called a despiritualization of the intellect. If we're just complex arrangements of atoms, we lose any special status. We become just another object in the universe, maybe more complex than a rock or a laptop, but not fundamentally different. So, where does this leave us? Given these two totally different ways of seeing things, how should we even talk about artificial intelligence? The material we're looking at offers a fantastic analogy to clear this all up. The core argument is this. When we say a machine is intelligent, we're really just speaking metaphorically. It's not literal. We're borrowing a word that applies to a conscious being and using it for a tool that's just very, very good at simulating one specific behavior. This analogy makes it crystal clear. Think about it. We say a bird flies, and we say a plane flies. But they are not the same thing at all, are they? A bird is a living thing, flying by its own will. A plane is just a tool that is being flown by someone or something else. It's totally dependent. The argument is that the same thing is true here. A human thinks, and AI merely processes. And that leaves us with this final, massive question. In the end, the debate over whether a machine can think, it isn't really about the machine. It's a mirror being held up to us. It forces us to confront our own definition of what it means to be human. Because if we build machines that can perfectly imitate thinking, we are going to be forced, once and for all, to decide who and what we truly are.